Hello everyone, hope all of you are safe and healthy. Welcome to IASbaba's Rapid Revision Series for Prelims 2021, and this is session 33 and day 45. And the topics we have are geography, climate and vegetation. So these are the hot topics we are going to discuss, that is the discrete auroras of Mars, then National Clean Air Program, and then the CAMPA or the Compensatory Afforestation Management and Planning Authority, then Aerosol Radiative Forcings or the ARFs, then State of World's Forests Report 2020, then the Emissions Gap Report 2020, and then the CARE project or the Climate Adaptation and Resilience of South Africa project, then the Drying Deltas, then Solar Geoengineering, and then the BECS or the Bioenergy with Carbon Capture and Storage. So coming to the first one, the discrete auroras of Mars. Friends, why was it in news? Because the UAE's HOPE spacecraft or the first Mars mission of Middle East, it captured the images of glowing atmospheric lights in the Mars's night sky, that is known as discrete auroras. So this was the name given to the Mars's shining atmosphere. So friends, in the context of discrete auroras, the auroras will become important. How are the auroras formed in the earth? That is, they are caused when the solar winds or the charged particles from the sun, they enter into Earth's atmosphere. So the charged particles will be emitted by the sun in the form of the solar winds, and when they enter the Earth's atmosphere, it will create the auroras. So how it will create? Friends, actually the Earth's geomagnetic field, it shields us from solar winds. So we know that solar winds are harmful for various weather and other phenomena of the Earth. So that is why the Earth's geomagnetic field, it will shield the solar wind. But however, at the north and south poles, these solar winds, they stream down and they enter the atmosphere somehow. So we know that in this geomagnetic field of the Earth, these parts, they are weak because there are less number of magnetic lines. So in these areas, these solar winds, they will enter into the Earth's atmosphere, and thereby they interact with the atmosphere to cause scattering of light in the night sky. So this display is called the auroral oval. So it will be in the oval shape like this. That is why it is called the auroral oval. And these ovals will appear all the year round. And then in the north hemisphere, these are called the aurora borealis or the northern lights. And in the south, they are called aurora australis or the southern lights. Now friends, how this is different from Mars's aurora? So in Mars, unlike auroras of the Earth, discrete auroras on Mars are seen all around the planet at the night time. So not only at the poles, but all around the planet, these auroras are formed. Why? Because Martian magnetic field has largely died out. So unlike the geomagnetic field, Mars doesn't have a well-defined magnetic field. This is because the molten iron at the interior of the planet, which produces the magnetism, has cooled. So we know that in the Earth, the core and mantle, the friction between these two will create magnetism. But this mantle, if it has been dried out, then the magnetism will dry out automatically. So in the Mars, this was the case that has happened. But however, Martian crust, it retains some magnetism, and this magnetism is not even. So it is scattered all over the Mars, and it is not unidirectional. That is, they have scattered in all directions. So this leads to discrete auroras that is formed in various parts of the Martian atmosphere. So thus leading to discrete formation of auroras all over the Martian atmosphere. So that is why the name discrete auroras. So this is all about Martian aurora. Then coming to next, the National Clean Air Program. Friends, why was it in news? Because Union government, it has approved 2,200 crores to state governments to fight air pollution in the 43 cities which have a million of population. But however, Delhi will not receive these funds because of various politico-economic reasons. Then money will be used to improvise the local urban bodies and state pollution control boards. So these are the two areas where the funds will be utilized. Then more about NCAP or the National Clean Air Program. So NCAP was launched by Ministry of Environment. But however, friends, many ministries, they work in collaboration for the implementation of NCAP. For example, Ministry of Road and Transport, then Ministry of Urban Development, then Ministry of Home, then Ministry of Rural Development, they all will integrate to the implementation of NCAP. Then however, the target for the reduction is 20 to 30% of particulate matter 2.5 and particulate matter 10 by 2024. So by 2024, we have to reduce these two particulate matters by 20 to 30%. And 2019 is the base year. So that is from 2019, we have to reduce these two particulates by 20 to 30%. And then it is to be implemented in 102 non-attainment districts. So these 102 non-attainment districts are those wherein the particulate matter hasn't been reduced in the last decade. So that is why the non-attainment, that is the reduction has not been attained. And then Central Pollution Control Board executes the program. So in this context, Central Pollution Control Board will become important. But however, CPCB has already been asked once by UPSC. And then it directs the state governments about implementing action plans. So it will guide the state governments. And then friends, National Clean Air Program is a convergent scheme. It consists of various other schemes like Air Quality Index or Graded Action Plan or maybe EPCA, Environmental Pollution Control Authority. So all these, they will converge to implement this program. So in this context, we will take a look at Air Quality Index, that is good at 40 to 50 particulate matters, and satisfactory from 51 to 100 particulate matters, and then moderate, then poor, very poor and severe. Friends, we know that Delhi will be always in this severe category or very poor category. So we will have a look at it and then move on. Then coming to more about National Clean Air Program. So here the mid-term 5 years action plan to begin with, keeping 2009 as base year, and further extendable to 20 to 25 years in the long term. So there are both long term as well as mid-term targets for the National Clean Air Program. And then objectives: stringent implementation of mitigation measures for prevention and control of pollution. And then augment and strengthening air quality monitoring network. So monitoring will be done. How it will be done? On the basis of air quality index. Then augment pollution awareness and capacity building measures. So we studied that the ULBs or the urban local bodies will be improvised by these NCAP funds. Then the targets we had already discussed, the national level targets of 20 to 30% of PM 2.5 and PM 10 by 2024. Then the approach, how will be the approach? It will be the multi-sectoral and collaborative approach. So we had discussed that many ministries, they will collaborate here. Then mainstreaming and integration into the existing policies and programs of Government of India, including the National Action Plan for Climate Change. And then use Smart Cities Framework to launch the NCAP in the 43 smart cities falling in the 102 non-attainment districts. So within this 102 non-attainment districts, the 43 smart cities will be given more weightage. So this is the approach. Then coming to more about the actions. So here, air quality monitoring network. So the AQI will be monitored by different networks by state, center and local levels. Then state, city and regional action plans for non-attainment cities. Then intensive training and awareness. So the public and the officials will be trained for that, and network of technical institutions. So for the forecast, monitoring, then appraisal, for all these things, technical institutions will be upgraded and they will be trained for them. Then extensive plantation drive. So the public will be encouraged to conduct plantation drives. Then health impact studies. So these pulmonary diseases, then other diseases caused by air pollution will be studied and assessed. Then capacity building of government and non-governmental institutions. Then technological support, might be buoys, sensors, then assessors, monitorers, etc. will be taken up and they will be procured and they will be implemented. Then national emission inventory. So a database will be maintained based on the national emissions per year. Then air quality forecasting system. So we will predict the air quality of the future. And then international cooperation by various international organizations, maybe UNEP, IPCC and others. Then technology assessment cell, and then air information center. Once again, to inform the public, the air information center will be set up. Then certification system for monitoring instruments. So for all the monitorers and other technical gadgets, the certification will be done. Then source apportionment for non-attainment cities. So what are the source? Financial source or maybe other sources will be apportioned. Then review of standards. The policy will be reviewed. So this is all about the National Clean Air Program. Then come to next, Compensatory Afforestation Fund Management and Planning Authority. Friends, why was it in news? Because drone surveys to be used to check the authenticity of tree plantation programs under Kampa in Assam. So Assam Chief Minister, he announced that by using drones, we will survey whether the compensatory afforestation is going on or not. So in this context, the CAMPA and the CAF will become important. So friends, the Supreme Court in 2002 had ordered the creation of Compensatory Afforestation Fund via PIL. Through a public interest litigation case it was done, and then CAMPA was established in 2004 to manage the Compensatory Afforestation Fund. So this fund needs a management authority. So CAMPA is the management authority of the CAF. And then in the 2013, CAG came up with a report and it stated that the CAFs are not being utilized properly and several funds are being lying idly. So in this context, the CAF Act or the Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act 2016 came into force on 30th September 2018. So here is a timeline which shows how CAMPA has evolved to become a large institution in itself. Then more about CAMPA. So as per the CAF Act 2016, the National Compensatory Afforestation Fund to be set up under the Public Account of India and the State Compensatory Afforestation Fund under the public account of the state concerned. So in both center and state, the Compensatory Afforestation Fund has to be set up, and the state funds will be receiving 90% of the payments while the national fund will receive remaining 10%. So how this Compensatory Afforestation Fund works, friends? So we will study here. So every time when the forest land is diverted for non-forest purposes, then the user or the diverter, he pays for planting forest over an equal area of non-forest land. So if I am diverting some 300 acres, so I will use another 300 acres of land and plant trees there. So this is how compensatory afforestation occurs. But however, when such land is not available, then twice the area of degraded forest land. So if I don't get 300 acres of non-forest land, then I will develop 600 acres of degraded land, or I will fund for the plantation of trees in these 600 areas of degraded land. So this is how the Compensatory Afforestation Fund works. So all those corporates who have diverted, they will give the fund and that will go to the CAF, and the CAMPA will monitor these funds and it will ensure the implementation of forestation. So this is all about CAMPA. Then come to next, the aerosol radiative forcings. Friends, why was it in news? Because researchers at Aryabhatta Research Institute of Observational Sciences, Nainital, they have found that aerosol radiative forcing over Trans-Himalayas is larger than the global averages. So there is huge ARF over Trans-Himalayas. So now when we study more about ARF, we will get to know what are the effects of this increasing ARF over the Trans-Himalayas. So ARF is a measure of influence of aerosols in altering the balance of incoming and outgoing energy into the Earth's atmosphere. So for example, if an aerosol is present in the Earth's atmosphere, it will either scatter or it will absorb the sunlight. So aerosols scatter or absorb the incoming solar radiation. Hence they modify the formation of clouds. Yes friends, so this impacts the atmospheric warming and glacial retreat. So the heat allowed or scattered, it will vary the atmospheric warming or it will vary the glacial meltdown. So thus it is an index of potential climate change. And the research shows that the ARF of aerosols in Himalayas is leading to heating rates of 0.04 to 0.13 degrees Celsius per day. So this is a very high rate of heating and this is well above the global average. So that is why increased ARF over the Trans-Himalayas shows that the Trans-Himalayas ice can melt faster than the world's average. Or in other words, this climate change can affect the Trans-Himalayas intensely. Then come to next, the State of World's Forest Report 2020. Friends, why was it in news? Because recently United Nations Environment Program and the Food and Agricultural Organization have jointly released the State of World's Forest Report 2020 or the SOFO report. So we will remember the institutions UNEP and FAO. Both are the specialized organizations of United Nations. Then about the report, it examines the contributions of forests and of the people who use them to the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. So what are the contributions the forests and the user do for sustainable use of this biodiversity? So this is what the SOFO speaks of. Then SOFO draws on the result of FAO's Global Forest Resource Assessment 2020. So this Global Forest Resources Assessment Report, this will provide as the basis database for the SOFO. So how friends, this Global Forest Resource Assessment, it speaks of what percentage of global forest is of tropical forest, what percentage is of temperate forest, what is the increase, what is the decrease, all these things will be spoken there. So by taking those records, this SOFO will assess how these forests are contributing to the biodiversity or the sustainability of those biodiversities. Then coming to key findings, friends, SOFO says that the world's forests, they are sheltering various species of wildlife and also plantations. May be some 75% of amphibians, some 65% of terrestrial animals, then other marine animals as well. So those exact numbers are not so important. Overall, the picture will be studied here. So the report says that forests cover of over 31% of global land areas. So over 31% of the global land area is covered by forests. Then more than half of the world's forests are found in only 5 countries. So what are those 5 countries wherein the most of the world's forests are found? They are Brazil, Canada, China, Russia and US. So India is not here. We will cross check here itself. And then between 2015 and 2020, the rate of deforestation had decreased as compared in the 1990s. So this decrease is to be remembered. So actually, as the trend is going on, as the industrialization is going on, it has to increase, but it is decreasing due to various environmental efforts. Then agricultural expansion continues to be the main driver of deforestation. So this agricultural expansion, not the industrialization, which is driving the deforestation. Then more about the SOFO, the Forest Specialist Index of World Wildlife Fund. Friends, you know that World Wildlife Fund is an NGO and this works in the conservation of wildlife. And this Forest Specialist Index of WWF shows a fall of 53% between 1970 and 2014. So what does this mean, friends? It means that there is an increased risk of several species becoming vulnerable to extinction. So when the specialist index is falling down, then the vulnerability is increasing. Then the world is not on track to meet the United Nations Strategic Plan for Forest targets, that is to increase the forest cover by 3% worldwide by 2030. So by going with this SOFO report, we will not be able to fulfill these targets. So what are these targets, friends? So these targets are the United Nations Strategic Plan for Forests 2017 to 2030 was adopted at a special session of UN Forum for Forests held in 2017. So these are factual things, friends, but however, we will have a cross check on World Wildlife Fund, then we will have a cross check on UNSPF, then we will have a cross check on UNEP and FAO, and also on the State Forest Report of FAO. Then here in this figure, we have the distribution of forest cover from various countries. We will have a look at it and then move on. Then come to next, the emission gap report of 2020. So why was it in news, friends? Because the United Nations Environment Program recently released its annual emission gap report 2020. So this is released by the UNEP itself. That is why it becomes more important. Now key findings. The GHG emissions continue to increase at 4% per year since 2010 on an average. So every year it is increasing by 4%. And in 2019 it has increased by 2.96%. And now the temperature has reached a record high. So we know that every year the emissions are hitting new records. And then fossil CO2 emissions, they account for maximum GHG emissions. So in this figure we can see this orange color is the shaded for fossil CO2 emission. So this is contributing to the largest GHG emissions. And then G20 countries account for the bulk of the emissions. Yes, but obvious these are the industrialized nations. Then top 4 emitters, that is China, US, European Union with UK and India, they contribute to 55% of total GHG emissions in the last decade. So only these 4 to 5 nations, they are contributing to more than 50% of GHG emissions. Then come to next, current nationally determined contributions or the INDCs would lead to a temperature increase of at least 3 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. So these current NDCs, they actually intended to stop the increase in global warming, but however, as per the going target or as per the going speed, it is depicted that we will have an increase by 3 degrees Celsius. Then around 2/3 of the global emissions are linked to the private household activities. So these luxury lives, ACs, then expenditure of electricity and cooking with the help of biomass, all these are adding to the GHG emissions. Then the emissions of the richest 1% of the global population account for more than twice the combined share of poorest 50%. So a huge difference, that is the top 1%, they are emitting more than twice of what the bottom 50% are emitting. Then COVID-19 crisis offers only a short-term reduction in the global emissions and will not contribute significantly to the emission reductions by 2030. So this COVID-19 saw some reduction in the GHG emissions because of lockdown and other issues. But however, the report says that this is very transitional phenomena. So in the figure we can see that there is a small dip in the GHG emissions due to the COVID-19 situations, that is -2 basis points and -4 basis points. But in the very next year, we are seeing an increase by +1 or by increase of +1 basis point. So this shows that the emissions are going to be back once the COVID-19 recedes. So this is all about the emissions gap report. Then come to next, the CARE project or the Climate Adaptation and Resilience for South Africa project. So why was it in news, friends? Because World Bank approved a $39.5 million CARE project to bolster climate action in South Asia. So it was newly launched by the World Bank. And then more about CARE project. The project will build resilience via regional data and knowledge. So the regional data will be taken care. And then to develop a public platform to inform climate planning and investment. So along with the governmental and non-governmental institutions, even the public will be informed via this platform. And then it will fund the regional resilience data and analytics service. So a database will be maintained and the project is going to fund that as well. And then it will also assess climate impacts in districts across Bangladesh, Nepal and Pakistan. So in all these countries, some districts will be selected and will be assessed. And then it includes a $36 million grant from the International Development Association. Friends, we know that IDA is a wing of World Bank. It provides cheaper credits, so that is providing 36 million grants. And then a $3.5 million from the Program for Asia Resilience to Climate Change. So this program, it will provide $3.5 million to the CARE project. Friends, we know that this project is being implemented by the UK's International Development Department, and this project is also supported by the World Bank. And then CARE will work with RIMES or the Regional Integrated Multi-Hazard Early Warning System for Africa and Asia. Friends, we know that RIMES was established after Tsunami 2008 and RIMES actually originated in ASEAN. And then Asian Disaster Preparedness Center. So this also works with the CARE. So Asia Disaster Preparedness Center is an intergovernmental organization working in Asia. So all these, they will work in tandem with the CARE project. Then come to next, the drying delta. Friends, why was it in news? Because the muskrat population is decreasing due to the drying deltas. So the muskrat populations have always followed a boom and bust cycle. So this booming and busting due to flooding and drying of deltas was not uncommon for these muskrats. But however, when we cumulatively assess their numbers, it is decreasing gradually day by day. So the reasons are drying deltas. And moreover, muskrats, they depend heavily on the floodwaters, rivers and streams to travel and disperse beyond their natural ponds. So because of this habitat destruction, the muskrats are being decreasing in number. So in this context, almost all the deltas of India we will revise. So coming to the map, so friends, here the east flowing rivers, the Ganga, the Subarnareka, Brahmani, then Baitarani will be here, and then Mahanadi is there, Mahanadi delta. Then here we will get Vamshadhara and other rivers, and then Godavari and Krishna, and then we will be having a wetland here between Krishna and Godavari. So in the comment box, let me know which is this wetland. This is an assignment for you. And then we have Pennar river delta here, Palar river delta, then Ponnayar or the Pannir will be having the delta here, then Kollidam and Kaveri rivers, they will be having delta. Then in the last we have Vaigai river. But however, in the west flowing rivers, we have Samanata or the Sabaramati, Mahi, Narmada and Tapi. So we can remember Samanata here. Then coming to Goa, we have Zuari and Mandavi rivers. Then coming to Karnataka, we have Sharavati rivers. Then in Kerala, we have Periyar and Mullaperiyar rivers. And moreover friends, this drying of delta is a common issue for almost all the deltas, and we will have to check this. How to check this? By increasing the rainfall in the catchment areas or by afforestation in the catchment areas. So that is how via environmental actions we can curb this drying of delta. Then come to next, the solar geoengineering. Friends, why was it in news? Because climatologists from University of Liege, they have found that injecting sulfur into the stratosphere can reduce solar radiation and stop the Greenland ice cap from melting. So this was a novel project that has been brought out, and the idea here is to inject sulfur into the stratosphere. Then the sulfur will reflect the part of solar radiation back into the space, just like how the aerosols they reflected. So sulfur is also an aerosol. Then this reduces the amount of sunshine on earth, similar to what happens during volcanic eruptions. So even in the volcanoes, when soot particles are being bursted out of volcanoes, they enter into the higher atmosphere, maybe stratosphere, and there they act on the solar radiations, and thus they reduce the temperature in the nearby areas. For example, in 1991, the eruption of Punitabo in the Philippines, it injected millions of tons of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, thus causing a drop in the global temperature of around 0.5 degrees Celsius. Here look at this figure friends, one volcano, it is reducing the global temperature by 0.5 degrees Celsius. So this is the effectiveness of this solar geoengineering. And as per the study, it is possible to locally reduce the melting of Greenland ice by 6%. So if you inject sulfur into stratosphere, 6% reduction of Greenland ice melting can be manifested. So in this figure, they have explained how the sulfur has to be injected. First we will inject sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere, and this sulfur dioxide will react with the ions or the hydrophilic ions, and it will become H2SO4 or the acid. Then due to dryness, the water will be removed and it will undergo nucleation, and only the sulfate aerosols will remain, or the SO4 ions will be remaining. So this will reflect the sunlight. So this is how the experiment has to be conducted. Then come to next, the BECCS or the bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. Why is it in news friends? Because this BECCS has been considered an inevitable to achieve the 2 degrees Celsius or 1.5 degrees Celsius climate goal. So in the Paris climate we have done this, and the INDCs are being intended towards this 2 degrees Celsius or 1.5 degrees Celsius reduction in the global temperature. Then how this bioenergy with carbon capture and storage or the BECCS works? Friends, we know that plants via photosynthesis they will absorb CO2, and that is how the plants are acting as carbon sinks. And these plants or the carbon sinks, they form the biomasses, and from these biomasses we will extract energy. That is, by fermentation or decomposition we will extract biogases, and then we will extract light and heat energy from them. And then once the energy is extracted, the remaining bio waste will be converted into biochar or the biochar, and this biochar will be stored by the geological sequestration, or it will be buried under the ground, or it will be buried under a place below the leaves, etc. So this makes it a negative emission technology. That is, whatever we have been extracting, we have been extracting in a green manner, and whatever waste, we are not burning it out, we are not re-emitting the CO2, rather we are burying the CO2 inside the earth. So hence it is a negative emission technology. So this negative emission technology can be used as a prospective project for reduction in this global temperature. And moreover, IPCC's 5th assessment report, it says that a potential range of negative emissions from 0 to 22 gigatons per year can be achieved via this BECCS project, or we can avoid up to 22 gigatons of carbon and carbon compounds from being emitted to the atmosphere. Or in other words, we can solve the greenhouse gas emission or the global warming or the climate change to a great extent using this BECCS or the negative emission technology. So this is all about the BECCS project. Then coming to next. Friends, APJ Abdul Kalam famously said that low aim is crime. So do not keep low aims. So friends, we know that even IAS may be low aim sometimes. So I want all my students to aim higher and higher. And moreover, IAS will be the highest dream only for 30 to 35 years of age. After that, please don't get stagnated. Think over and above. Think to conquer the world. Think to rule the hearts of millions and millions of people. Not just work as a government employee behind the desks. So all the very best friends. Good luck.